Hello everybody, my name's Hannah Matthews. I'm here with you today from Whole Education. We are going to make a start on our webinar very shortly. Today we are here with Zoe Hames, who is the Assistant Head Teacher of Shevington High School, and she will be speaking with you during this webinar around her practice in assessment. The format of today's webinar is as follows. So we have our welcome and introductions, which we are going through at the moment, and Zoe will then be speaking to you about what she has done with assessment at Shevington High School. After that, we will have 10 minutes of questioning. So anything that you would like to note down during the webinar, we'll have 10 minutes at the end for you to ask Zoe any of those burning questions that you have. I'm going to switch screens now, so as you'll be able to see Zoe's screen. And she will then take you through her presentation.
Okay, can you see my screen? Do I need to press that?
Yes.
Show my screen?
That's right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right.
That's done, Zoe. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, do you want me to start?
Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening. I just want to say it isn't, I'm not presenting this as a perfect system, and it isn't without flaws, but it is an improved system, and we think it aligns more with our values. First of all, we introduced from September, we started working on it this time last year. We introduced a new assessment system that took over from the previous one, which was our assessment without level system that we were using. So when levels went, like many schools, we did a lot of research and we looked at different schools and what they were doing. And we had originally we had a banding system. And we trialled that for a year. We worked and lived with that for a year, but we felt it didn't really sit comfortably with us because it was putting children into bands, and it sort of contradicted the reason why levels had gone in the first place. So also we felt that the numbers were quite meaningless and the names were meaningless to the pupils. So they have names like, for example, Intermediate 2, Intermediate 3 and Advanced. And when we asked pupils, in our discussions with pupils, what do you need to do to get from an Intermediate 2 to an Intermediate 3, they just looked at you blankly and really they didn't know. So it didn't improve things. It was moving no further on than levels, and we wanted to really embrace the idea of the real reason why levels went, and we didn't want to lock children into a band and have them carrying around a number. So we feel that this system is more values-led and links with our moral purpose. We also feel it's got no cap on learning. So we're saying really that every child, and to quote Tim Oates, who was responsible for removing levels, every child is capable of anything, provided, depending on the way that they were taught, the way they're taught and the effort that they put in. So this system does allow students, rather than being locked into a band, it does allow students to work on their own strengths and progress on to next stages in learning. And it's raised expectations because we've got really, really high expectations for the end of each year, which I'll talk about later on. We're also looking at the third bullet point. We also wanted to have a bit more of a transition, a smoother transition from primary. So lots of primaries are using, well, the age-related expectations that they're using in primary schools. We felt, why change that just because they get to Key Stage 3? And why not continue that? That is something we wanted to do a lot with. We've worked a lot with primaries, and we really wanted to, the wasted years document that you've all read was really sort of quite pertinent to us, and we wanted to embrace all the work that they've done in primary school and have a smoother transition. So this system fits in with that. We also wanted the teachers to have more control over what they're assessing and what the big ideas are within a subject. So we wanted teachers to come up with what are the big ideas within their curriculum area. And this ties in as well, to quote Tim Oates, it's fewer things in greater depth, and we really wanted to embrace the mastery and the depth sort of element of assessment rather than kind of a superficial tick box. Yeah, they've done that, so they're such and such a band or such and such a stage, and that's what this system aims to do. Sorry. So how we did it was we decided, so bearing in mind the age-related expectations from primary, we decided we'd have 11 stages that corresponded to a school year. So year 11 would be stage 11, and we worked backwards all the way to stage 1. So even though we are a secondary school, we did consider what stage 1 would look like and what those primary stages would look like. We have a 2-year Key Stage 3, which is year 7 and 8, as many schools do. And to arrive at our sort of mastery statements, if you like, for those stages, we had to look at what was needed in year 11 and what was needed to get the very high grades at the end of year 11 at GCSE, and we had to work backwards. So we had to write statements for year 11 and then year 10, and then we had our programs of study to help us with year 9, and then we arrived at statements, mastery statements for year 8 and for year 7. So just to show you how it works, this is just a quick overview to show you that behind the system is the trajectory here, and it shows the link from Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 4, and again it's showing that age-related principle there. So at the bottom you've got your years, and at the top you've got your stages. So I've circled there showing in year 4 we would the very highest expectation for a year 4 pupil would be to achieve stage 4. If a pupil is working on stage 4 in year 4, then if you could follow that sort of dark colour all the way up, they would then be expected to be on stage 11 in year 11. So it does take into account differing abilities of the child and prior attainment. Just to zoom in a little bit on that, in our secondary context, got a bit of a clearer grid here, which will just show you how we determine these. So you've got your stages. If you look at year 8, we're saying that the most stable pupil in year 8 would be expected to be at stage 8. If you follow that trajectory up, they will be expected to achieve a grade 7 and above at GCSE. A middle ability pupil in year 8 would be on stage 7, and a lower ability pupil would be on stage 6, which equates, if you follow it upwards, equates to a grade 5 and above. These are very aspirational, but our school policy is that we have aspirational targets. So that is what we have been going with for now. Moving on. So how do we report? So against each statement, so basically we asked all our subject teachers or subjects and faculties to come up with statements for each of those stages. And against each stage, teachers will judge upon an assessment or assessed piece of work, they will judge mastered, achieving or working towards. So mastery would be a deep understanding of this skill. Achieving, they've started to understand the skill and can apply it with some consistency, and working towards, they've got some knowledge but not yet achieved what's expected of them in that skill. And what we've done is we've asked faculties and subjects to come up with their own boundaries for these judgments. So for example, in maths, on a certain assessment, they have to get above 90% for mastered, etc., etc. So subjects have all come up with their own criteria for what these are. So we're giving quite a lot of autonomy to the curriculum teachers and curriculum areas, so it does allow for that personalisation. So basically, teachers will record these judgments on their mark book. We've used SIMS to create a mark book, and teachers will enter their assessments and all their data on this live mark book throughout the year, and we will just lift the data 3 times per year to take a snapshot of what that register, that mark book looks like. So this has replaced our, what we traditionally used to call screening, which is our data lifts, where teachers are not having to input all the time because it's actually a replacement for their mark book. So that's what we call it. We call it a mark book lift, and the aim of that is to reduce teacher workload. So teachers bought in to the assessment because it was less workload for them, and it's a really good way of us as senior leaders checking the mark book and checking where students are up to. So this is an example of the mark book on SIMS and what it looks like. So if you look on the left hand side, you've got the prior attainments, and we've divided them into high, middle and low. You've got a GCSE target grade, and their baseline grade is what they need to be working on based on that trajectory that I showed you a couple of slides back. And then on the right hand side, you've got the judgments, so the mastered, achieved and working towards, and the statements and stages are at the top. You've also got here homework and attitude to learning, and this is also live, so teachers can fill this in anytime. We just have an ABC recording for that. And when it comes to the next data mark book lift, teachers don't have to input that again, but they can edit it if things have changed. We have, in order to sort of have an overview, for heads of faculty and teachers to have an overview of class performance, group performance, individual performance, we have asked teachers to put in, because of the way SIMS works, teachers have had to put in a value. So they've put in a value, and this is a best fit value for the things on the left, the actual judgments on the left. So this child at the top is 7A because the best fit is that he is achieving at stage 7. So I hope that makes sense. So the report's generated by SIMS and it's colour coded. So this is a zooming in of a report. So we have a destination grade would be on the top of the report, and we would just simply say, using that value and a calculation of that value, we would say whether they were exceeding expected progress, making expected progress, or working below expected progress towards the destination grade. And the report is very, very detailed. So there is quite a lot of paper, but we are looking to do online next year, so they won't have to print off lots and lots of coloured reports. And on the right hand side there you've got the judgment. So parents can easily see what their child can do in a subject, or what they're working towards in a subject, and what we need to do, we do need to develop this further. Children need to articulate, I want to articulate exactly what they can do within each subject, which is far more useful than them saying, I'm working at level such and such, or I'm working at intermediate 2 or intermediate 3. So they can actually talk and articulate about where they are. But we are revising these statements because some of them are not as student speak friendly as others. And the ones that have been quite short and quite student friendly have been the most successful statements. And I think also it is worth saying at this point, if anyone is going down this system, I think the success of it really does depend on the quality of the statements that teachers produce. And I think a lot of time and a lot of effort has gone into that, and it does need to keep being revised so that they are high quality statements rather, and that they have been moderated and standardised. So this is another example. We've colour coded the stages. So we're not telling children you're on stage 7, you're on stage 8. We are basically telling children, we're telling them what their destination grade is, and then we are giving them a colour coded report. So you can see by looking at that this person's default, or this person's stage that they should be working on, is sort of shaded in green, where you can see there's a slight change in colour. The blue, that child is obviously working at the stage above, but all they need to know is that they're exceeding expectations or they're on target, and what's important is the actual subject statement that's going to help them and help them progress in that subject. So the benefits of the system are that staff workload is reduced. So as I've said before about the mark book lift, teachers don't have to input a whole set of new data every time we want to report to parents. They're basically inputting on their register test scores and test judgments as they're going along, and we just lift this data 3 times a year. Things like the attitude to learning and the homework's on there, so again they just edit that, and we're using SIMS in the best way that we can to reduce workload. Once the statements are done, there isn't really, they don't have to type in reams and reams or anything. It's just a case of mastered, achieving or working towards. Obviously a really important benefit is that parents and pupils have a clear understanding of what the child can do. We've had some extremely positive feedback from parents at our review days, and we've also done a parent survey on Parents' Evening, and the feedback is extremely positive. We also, because we were changing systems, we had a Raise and Achievement Evening in October for Year 7 and 8, and we did go through the system with them so that they knew what to expect, and they were with us and they sort of bought in because we've involved them in the process. And even since then the system has developed, so like the putting of the value in, the inputting of the value, that is something that wasn't on their first report, so they've sort of grown with us really, and they really value that feedback. And I'll show you a quote from a student in a minute. Also, it's definitely had higher expectations. So we've got, because we're saying at the end of the year, this, for example, a Year 7 student should achieve Stage 7. Stage 7 is a very, very high, it's a very, very high statement and a very high expectations of quality work in that subject. So we're expecting those students to go on and achieve the highest grades at GCSE, but we are saying that any child, no matter what, where their starting point is, they can move on and they can achieve those statements within a stage, and they can work towards their strengths and move on to the next stage. We also think it's got higher expectations of teachers. Teachers have had to be really prescriptive in these statements, and so they are more accurate, which helps us identify underachievement much more readily, because the statements are accurate, the assessments have got to link up with the statements, and it all ties in and fits together. And obviously, and it does involve parents a lot more as well, so we are encouraging parents to be more involved, and we're having much higher level discussions with parents, and we are welcoming any discussions about the statements, any discussions about challenge and about progress. We welcome all that, because it's all parental engagement, which can only be a good thing, and we have seen a marked increase in parental engagement with children's learning. So just to finish, really, we have been Ofsted recently, and one of the questions that was asked about assessments was how do you know how well you're doing? And one of the students said, last year we just got a bunch of numbers, and this year we know exactly what to do in each subject to get better. We know not to compare because everybody's working on different things, so the children don't, whereas last time they used to go, are you on intermediate 2? I'm on intermediate 3. They don't do that because they've not been told a stage, so they are just literally focusing on the actual statement and the mastery. And then some of us are working on Year 9 expectations already. So we have had really positive feedback, and I think that last slide just says it all really about we are doing it for the right reasons. It has been a journey, and it has been a lot of hard work for the teachers, but it has really paid off, and we're just going to keep developing it because we really believe in it. And that is the end of the slideshow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zoe. I do really like the quote that you have from your student, from Isaac, at the end there. I think it was really interesting and very informative. Thank you for walking us through your process so far and the journey that you've been on. I also think it was really valuable to see those examples from SIMS that you've lifted, and also just to see the table with the clear levels across the key stages. What I'm going to do now is, we have quite a few participants here who at the moment are all on mute, but if I say your name and if you have a question for Zoe, you'll just have a chance to offer that up to her now. If you have a microphone that isn't working or you don't have a microphone facility, there is an option for you to type your question in, and either Zoe or I will be able to read that out and answer that. So I'll start with Caroline. Caroline, did you have, oh, sorry, just one moment. I'm just trying to unmute Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. I have your question through here now. Caroline's saying that she doesn't think that her microphone works. I'm just going to see. The next person that I have is David. David, I was wondering if you had a question here for Zoe. Okay, David, I can't hear anything from you, so if you have a question, you are more than welcome. Oh, it's come through now. Thanks, David. So David would like to know, how does this work for non-core subjects such as business studies? So Zoe, I'll hand over to you.
We've asked all our, we don't do business studies at this school, sorry, but we've asked all subject teachers have had to write the 11 stages. So they've done 8 statements for each stage, going all the way down to stage 1, and all subjects have done that. So like food tech, computer studies. So I imagine the same would apply for business studies. They've had to kind of just work backwards over the stages.
Brilliant. Thank you, Zoe. Helen, you've asked if we can please be emailed this PowerPoint. What we're doing at the moment is we are recording this webinar, so this will be posted onto our Whole Education YouTube channel. And Zoe, are you happy to share this PowerPoint?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Brilliant, perfect. So we can also email this out. Thank you, Helen. I'm going to go to Natalie now to see if you have any questions. Not at the moment, it doesn't look like. Okay, Zoe, I think that's everybody who is still on the line whose questions that we've answered. If you have any other questions, feel free, I think I've unmuted all of you now, feel free to answer through or type through. Zoe, was there anything else that you would like to add?
Did you hear that?
No, I'm sorry, we missed that.
Yeah, no, it's fine, thank you.
Okay. Well, Zoe, thank you very much for presenting today. To everyone who's attended, we will send out a copy of Zoe's PowerPoint slides and also make this available on YouTube. The final thing to say is, David has just said to you, Zoe, thank you for this, very interesting and similar to what we do, but also different. Good to know, David. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
The final thing that I would like to do is just very quickly run over, we are having a Whole Education, our summer conference is being held on the 23rd of June, and that's in partnership with Shiland Research School in Birmingham. And this is really looking at evidence-informed practice. The other thing that we're doing at the moment is on the 22nd of June, we have a celebration and awards dinner, which is for great practice that we have within the Whole Education Network. So I really encourage you to speak to your head teachers or to your Whole Ed champion within your school and nominate somebody who you think is really deserving of this award, because we know that there is so much great practice happening in our network at the moment. All right, thank you everybody for listening in, and you will be emailed shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just speak to you in a minute after, when, is that okay?
Of course, no problem at all. All right. Are you there, Zoe? Everybody's been dismissed.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm there. I'm just going to ask, is it okay if I ask my head about the YouTube thing? I'm sure it'll be fine,
Oh,
but
of
is it okay?
course. No problem at all. That's
Oh,